G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Adam Kirk from Oostas, based in Lancaster, United States. Thanks for your time today, Adam.
Thanks, Troy. Great to be here.
And you're based in between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
Yeah, correct. South Central Pennsylvania. Good old Amish County.
Right. Haven't been out that way, but I hear it's beautiful.
Yeah, very beautiful. Probably not near as beautiful as where you're at, though. I can bet that.
Yeah, I've got to stop talking about Tasmania where I live because there's too many people moving to our state now. Everyone's discovered the secret. Let's start with how we know each other. So you reached out on our website to come on as a guest. That was a few months ago.
Yeah, and listened to a few podcasts since then. Great stuff. I love it. You got a lot of down-to-earth, practical input on your podcast, and I find that so valuable.
Yeah, thank you. And tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money. Maybe start with how the hell you came up with the name.
Yeah, so we get asked all the time, like, what does Oostas mean? So the quick story behind that, my wife and I, we have 4 kids. We lived in the country of Turkey for a number of years, for about 8 or 9 years. And when we had to leave there fairly quickly, we came back to the US. That's when I started the business back in 2018 and started with my business mentor. We were working on a business plan and we're like, hey, we need a name. And so the name Oostas comes from a Turkish word that means master craftsman. And our business, which we can dive into this a little bit, we basically serve small businesses through digital marketing websites. And our goal is to help small businesses be the master of their craft. Like if we work with a plumber, an electrician, or whatever, they're the master of their craft. We're helping them do that through online marketing. So Oostas is a Turkish word that means master craftsman.
Right. Ironically, though, it must be pretty shit for SEO.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's why you have things like taglines.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Right. And how did you start out?
So yeah, it boils down to when we moved back to the States back in 2017, it was a sudden move back and we weren't exactly sure like what was I going to do next. And so I started meeting with my business mentor. He's still my business mentor to this day. We talk almost every other week and we were working on the business plan. I mean, I had so many different career options ahead of me. I was like, I don't know what to do, but I had done a lot of marketing on the side before that. I love doing it. Had started a number of small businesses, several nonprofits, things like that. And yeah, we just decided like, hey, let's start a business. I started my first office was in my in-laws boiler room.
Yeah.
That's a unique thing for sure. Most people start in garages. I started in a boiler room. So yeah. And my dad was my first employee. So that was always fun. Normally it's to flip, like the father starts the business and then the son moves up. It was I started the business and hired my dad.
Yep.
So
and maybe go back.
Yeah.
So did you go to college or university and then corporate job? And then what was the real catalyst for you deciding to start your first business?
Yeah. So I do have a degree. It's actually in religion, not in marketing, which is strange. So my wife and I, like I said, we were overseas. We were involved in a missions organization and we had done a lot of things, started a lot of nonprofits, a lot of small businesses on the side. And like I said, when we basically had to leave the country we're at fairly quickly and kind of thrown back into life in the United States, it was not a planned thing. And so we were kind of thrust into having to make some major life and career decisions, which I'm very grateful for my business mentor. He really carried me through that point. And it was an amazing transition. Yeah.
Great. In 2018, when you started the business, how old were you?
I would have been,
5 years ago.
Mid 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mid 30s. So I'm 41 now. So I would have been mid 30s.
36. Great.
Yeah.
And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 5 years?
Yeah, for sure. We're a small business ourselves. We work with over 200 different clients. We're currently a 7-member team and growing. We just hired a new person last week, which is super exciting. As far as like numbers, like one of the biggest things that I love to share is the recurring revenue. When I started the business I didn't start it with my mentor, but as we were formulating the business plan back in the end of 2017, he really encouraged me. He's like, recurring revenues where it's build a business that you don't have to sell $40, $50, $60,000 worth of new product every single month. Build it on recurring revenue. And we've done that. It's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for sure to get there. But over the last 2 years, we've hovered around 70, 80% of our operating expenses being covered by recurring revenue.
Wow.
And I'm proud to say that currently we're at
Yep.
low to mid 90s. It has taken a lot of work, but it's good.
That's great and very smart right out of the gate to focus on that recurring revenue. What is that recurring revenue? Is it just retainers for the work you do, or have you got a product that you sassitize? Not that that's a word.
It's mostly through the products and services that we sell. Like we'll do websites. Websites have hosting plans. Those are on a monthly subscription. We'll do search engine optimization. That often includes like a one-time fee, but then also a monthly recurring subscription. Social media marketing, same thing. Google ad management, a lot of those different things. There's a one-time setup fee, but then we get them on a monthly subscription plan, a monthly retainer. And there's definitely been dips in that. Nobody out there is the perfect business. So anytime you lose a client, especially back in the first year or two, like you're pouring your heart and soul into this. And then if you ever lose a client for whatever reason, it's like, oh my word, there's just a massive hit. But it's been phenomenal. And that's one of the big areas I feel like success has come.
Yeah, great. We'll get onto those success questions in a moment. I just want to clarify. So when you started out, was it just yourself that started the business, one full-time equivalent?
It was. So I spent probably 3 to 4 months formulating a business plan with my business mentor. And then right as I was like, probably within a few weeks of kind of hitting the go button and starting, my dad actually was laid off of his job where he had been at for like 15 years. The company he was bought out, and they were just basically everybody on the team was getting laid off. And so I remember he called me one night and he's like, hey, I just want to let you know, I just got laid off. And I was like, oh my word, Dad, that's horrible. But then my brain went into like entrepreneur mode. And I was like, it was a Friday night, I think. And I was like, Dad, I'm coming over tomorrow morning, 8:00. We're going to chat. He knew what I was doing. He knew I was starting the business. And I was like, he was the perfect fit. He'd been in marketing and IT for a number of years. And I was literally like, Dad, I want to hire you. I don't care what it takes. Like, I don't have anything to offer you. I'm going to take out a loan and we're going to make this work. And it did. And he was with me full time for around 3 years. And then he went part-time for about a year. And now he's fully retired, but it was a ride for sure. I love it.
That's great. So two of you really, two full-time equivalents when you started?
Yeah. For the first year and a half, it was just the two of us. And then I hired a full-time web designer, I want to say around a year and a half. We had been using some subcontractors and outsourcing things here and there for the first year primarily. And then honestly, since then, we've just been slowly growing and adding. As we've had the revenue and as we've had the workload, we'll add another team member. And it's been great. Yeah. I personally did not take any income from the business for the first 11 months. So we basically lived off of, we had sold a house, put that into the business, took a personal loan and lived off of that for a while and basically just bootstrapped the whole thing.
Yeah, fantastic. Adam, that reminds me, SEO, how important it is. An IT support company in London that I signed a little bit of, that I moved in London in 2007 to help grow. My business partner loves his gin. I love my craft beer. So I had a bet with him on SEO. We were starting to really market the business at the time. This is 2008, 9, I think. And I said to him, I bet you can't get us to page one of Google within 3 months. And if he did, I'd get him the best bottle of craft gin. And if he didn't, he'd get me the best case of craft beer. And we spoke about how this went at the British Library soon after, because we're a partner of the library. And I remember getting up and telling people about it. And then, but what had impressed me the most, because Tom made it with 2 days to spare.
Wow.
The thing that impressed me the most was how he went about it, which I then handed over to him to explain what he actually did. So we had a team of 10 or 15, I think, at the time. He didn't try and do it all himself. What was really smart is that he delegated, he sat down, he planned. That old Abraham Lincoln quote, if I've got 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening my saw. So Tom thought about it, did some quick research. He didn't know anything about SEO at the time, even though we're an IT support company, pretty broad what we do. Sorted up on it, wrote a plan, delegated to, 5 or 6 team members, and had some really interesting projects fall out of that. So we got to page one of Google for IT support London, a very sought after search phrase. We were on page 8 at the time when we started, and in 3 months he got us there. And obviously SEO landscape's changed in that time, but it's a phenomenal story. The article's still there if anyone wants to Google it. Just literally type in Google gin bet and you'll find that blog post that I wrote probably 15 years ago now. But yeah, SEO is still very, very important to this day.
For sure. Love it.
So I take it your strategy now is then, as you're growing, you're building up one area of the business, you're getting enough effectively to get to a full-time equivalent. You can then stop using a contractor in that role and add a full-time team member. So you're not really leveraging a lot of contractors model. You're just building it up until you get an area to a point where you can put a permanent person on. Is that pretty much your approach?
Yeah, it has been the approach, and it's worked well for the most part. Again, full disclosure, like you said in the notes you sent over, like share your successes and your downsides. Like there's definitely been downsides to hiring subcontractors. Full disclosure, like we've done search engine optimization as a service for a number of years. It took us a long time to be able to have the workload and the revenue to hire a full-time SEO person. So we outsourced to a company overseas for a number of years. That was not the best fit. Just the quality of the work that they produced was just not good. So we kind of hybrided it, if that's a word, for a little bit. We outsourced it and then had a person internally who would kind of be the project manager and oversee it. And it was rough for a while there until we finally said, hey, enough is enough.
So, when was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Yeah, I love that question. So the moment I felt like we had succeeded was probably about 2 years ago, when we're getting to the point where we had a dedicated internal team member for pretty much most of the areas that we serve. We had a dedicated website person, a dedicated SEO person, a dedicated social person. That made me feel like I had a solid team around myself. At that point, we had moved into a nice office. So we had a good like physical location on a good solid street with a lot of traffic. So I was like, dude, I'm living the life. The picture that I had painted in my head when I was starting the business of like, this is what a digital marketing company should look like. That's when I was like, I feel like I'm doing it. And that was a cool moment. Yeah.
And do you have a vision for how big you want to get the full-time team to, a number of team members?
Yeah. I don't have like massive vision. I like to keep things simple. So I've always said 10 or fewer employees is where it's happy for me. When you start to get into more than that, you need middle management, and it's a whole nother game. That's not my strong point. So I feel like where we're at now, we've had little bits of, I mean, we can touch on that down the road, but like little bits of turnover and things like that over the last few years. But honestly, I would say 8 to 10 member team is our happy spot.
Yep. That's a good size. I heard the managing partner of Blackbird Ventures here in Australia, who's Australia's leading VC firm, basically. They're really early into Canva. Saw him speak a few months ago, and he made an interesting point. He's an ex-founder. He sold his company, and now he sits on the other side of the table approving deals that Blackbird invest in, tech companies. And he said up to 12 team members, full-time equivalents is a dream. And then 12 to 20, it just gets harder, 20 to 50, and then 50 to 100. He said it's just painful. So it sounds like, and I've heard that from a few sources, 12 might be the magic number. Going above that, obviously all the relationships increase exponentially because you're adding more team members. So that sounds to me like a good size that you're striving for.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard the same thing from other people as well. It's when you hit that threshold, like as a CEO owner right now, like part of my job is team management and HR and things like that. When you have larger numbers, that's just a whole nother thing. And it takes a lot of effort and energy. So, yeah.
I love that Texan saying the definition of conflict is two people in the same county.
I love it. I don't think I've ever heard that before. So true.
What does success look like to you?
That's a good question. Success looks for me like letting go of my dreams, letting go of the preconceived ideas of what I felt like a digital marketing company should be. I know I said a second ago, 30 seconds ago, I said like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, when I had a full team, and I still do have a full team, and moved into a great office. We still have a great office. That's when I felt like I was on top of the world. I think success looks for me now like learning to let that go. COVID taught a lot of people a lot of things. COVID was really good for us and for our industry. I think worldwide in digital marketing, people ran to the web and said, hey, we need more help here. So we rode the wave of COVID, and it did really well for us. And since then, there's been a dip and I think we've seen this in a lot of different industries as well. COVID did well for businesses. There was a lot of revenue made, and people said, let's reinvest it back into the business. Let's hire more. Let's invest in more software. Let's invest back into the business. So we created more operating expenses. And then there was a dip, like at least I don't know how it is in Australia, in the US, the economy has slowed down a little bit. So we've been left with higher operating expenses and a little bit of dip in revenue. And so that has forced us to kind of say, okay, do we actually need full-time people in an office full-time from 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Or can we work more remote?
So you're thinking at the moment of maybe ditching the office and going fully remote? Yeah, I think that's smart.
Yeah. I literally met with our realtor probably about 3 hours ago. And we'd been having the conversation for several months and it's finally starting to take shape. But yeah, so to answer your question full circle, success for me at this moment looks like learning to let go of the picture that I painted in my head of what a digital marketing company should be, and learning to let go and say, it doesn't have to be in an office. It doesn't have to be full time. Solid subcontractors can work, and they can, if done well, they can work phenomenally well.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
Utilizing social media. We have seen a huge uptick in that, even just in the last 6 months. Just putting a little bit of ad spend behind social media posts gets phenomenal traffic to people's websites. So that would be probably number one thing. Second thing I would say is utilizing well-written, optimized content on a website for the search engine side of stuff. I obviously don't have time here, but like we could tell story after story of good content on someone's website and the results that it produces for them, phenomenal.
A lot of people think, and I was thinking this way only a year or so ago when I stepped into the marketing corner of Grow a Small Business to really start to market finally after, I don't know, 13 years, that I had the misconception that I thought SEO was dead, and I had a few guests on in the digital marketing space like yourself, but it's very much still alive. And because if you think about it, someone's typing into Google a search phrase, they're a warm prospect. That if you can get to the top 3 results for that search phrase, someone is interested, looking for what you have to offer. So it's still very, very relevant.
Yeah. I'll share a really quick story on that. We have a client who they are a divorce attorney in Hawaii. We did their website a few years ago. We've been doing Google ads. We've been doing search engine optimization for them. And it was going phenomenally well, almost too well, where probably 3 months ago, they reached out to us and said, hey, we're getting a lot of leads, but they're not always the right kind of leads. They're like we're a higher end divorce attorney. They're looking for the $500 service fee. They're like, that's not it. So we worked with them to narrow down some wording on the marketing we were doing for them and try and find a little bit more of the niche. So about a month ago, we produced an article on their website. I don't remember specifically what it was entitled, but it was like answering the question of how much does divorce cost in Hawaii? It was a page on their website, a landing page. We published it about a month ago. Our SEO guy checked just yesterday. And if you type that in, they are the number one organic spot. And it even has, without getting too technical, it has what's called a rich snippet, where it shows some of the content from that article right there in Google. And it's like, that's golden, like that's phenomenal. And it's only even a month old. So good content really does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. How did you fund your business? You mentioned that you'd sold a house. Have you had investors along the way? I think you said you took a bank loan out as well.
Yeah. So the big thing to get it started and to pay my dad's salary for the first months, we had sold a house and basically threw that money into the business. We did take on the personal side because we didn't take out money for a little bit. We had taken a personal loan. And I think we had 2 very small personal loans for the business. Those were paid off fairly quickly, but it was bootstrapping it. It was personal money that was thrown into the business, and it's what kept us afloat for a while. So
if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. I love what I do. I love marketing. I love getting results for clients. That is so fun. Like with that story just a second ago of the divorce attorney in Hawaii, like our SEO guy was able to email them yesterday or today, show them that and be like, hey, this is what's happening. This is the results we got for you. There's a huge rush in that. It's so fun. So yeah, I would do it for sure.
Adam, SEO, I was blown away with another really interesting story, episode 353, which went live early May a few months ago. Tyler Horsley from Nuclear Marketing, and he's got a digital marketing agency based in Denver. He tried to sell his business. There's a couple of good stories out of that podcast I'll quickly mention. So he realized he couldn't sell it. He wasn't big enough, started spotting up on M&A, mergers and acquisition. How do you value a business? How do you sell a business? Realized he wasn't big enough, so approached 2 friendly competitors, merged. 18 months, it sold to a VC firm. It's a great episode. Anyone interested in digital marketing, so we talk a bit about SEO there as well. But a gem in that on SEO, he started a couple of other businesses up, and he'd noticed that 20,000 people a month were searching in Denver for spas or hot tubs. And there was not one physical store in Denver, Colorado, selling spas or hot tubs. So he went and started a business with a mate, servicing that market. And when we recorded it, they were just opening a second site in another city where he'd used his SEO knowledge, looking at that search volume to see that there was a physical need based on the data coming out of his SEO knowledge. I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, that is a phenomenal story. And it's so true. Like we've done that internally as we do what's called keyword research. You can easily see like X amount of people are searching for this and there's such low competition. We've said the same thing in our office of like, dude, we should start a business for whatever it was.
Yeah.
So true.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Just one.
Yeah. The joys of being a business owner, hey?
Yeah, I think I have two. The one, just full disclosure, is being alone. Like I'm an owner CEO. I'm sitting at the top myself. About 6 months ago, I did create a leadership team with 2 people on my team. I mean, we're a small team of 7, 8 people, but making the decisions on a day-to-day basis by myself, 90% of the time I love it, 10% of the time I hate it with a passion. So that's hard. The second thing I would say would be staff turnover. Again, we're a small team. I have a phenomenal team right now. I wouldn't trade anybody for the world, but that was not the case. A year and a half ago, I had to fire someone and another 2 people left, and in a matter of like a month. And it was like when you're a team of 7 people and you lose 3 people in a matter of a month, it's devastating.
Wow.
And it was incredibly hard. We pulled through, but that was really rough.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Yeah, this is going to sound dumb too. Marketing. I mean, I don't know if you have the saying in Australia, but in the States, we have a saying that's like the cobbler's sons doesn't have shoes. Like the person who makes shoes, their kids don't even have shoes. Like we're a marketing company. We do websites and online marketing for companies. Our own marketing is hard at times just because we're so focused on our clients.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I would probably tie it back to staff and team as well. I mean, right now it's phenomenal, but it's a challenge. Like managing people there's a lot of joy in it when it's easy, and when it's not easy, it's all really hard. So that would be a challenge.
Totally agree with you. What do you love most about growing a small business?
Yeah, I don't want to sound redundant, but my team, like again, it's the love and the hate. When it's going well, like right now it's phenomenal. I wouldn't trade anybody on my team for anything. So I love that. When it's a challenge and it's not the thing, that can be challenging. The other thing is just results. Like I wouldn't say that I'm naturally a super competitive person, but there's something about being able to do something for someone and see the results that it gets for them. That is such a rush and such a joy. And I really love like even my team members, like when they do that for them, coming around them and like cheering them on, like just being an encouragement to the team and saying, look at what so-and-so just did. Look at what they did for this person. It's awesome. Yeah, I love it.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I would say that ties back into what we were talking about a few minutes ago, helping myself get outside of the box of what I thought a digital marketing company should look like. When we were starting over 5 years ago, or even longer than that, I had painted a picture in my head of what the business should look like. And I geared it towards that. And now realizing that like, it doesn't have to look like that. That's been a mind shift that I'm still working through.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I love that question. I get asked this a lot from clients who come to us for advice and stuff. Biggest thing I would say is ask for help and have a business mentor or have a business coach or something like that. I've got a lot of friends in businesses. Like one of my good friends, he just bought a business 3 months ago in an industry that he was not super familiar with, and he's doing okay, but he's floundering. And I kept telling him, I was like, dude, you need to have a coach or a mentor or someone who, especially when things go rough, you're meeting with them and you're just their sounding board. That's super helpful.
It's bizarre, isn't it? You think about it, the analogy is sports people, the elite athletes, they've had coaches for years and years to get them to that elite performance. And you would think small business owners, and I mean, I certainly didn't get onto this to mentors and coaches for many years, but you would think small business owners would clue into that and go, well, I need someone that's been down the road that I want to walk down, and they're going to hold me to account and tell me when I need to pull my head in. But most of us don't.
Yeah, for sure. I've literally called my business mentor crying on the phone once, I think only once. Just when crap hits the fan, you're like, you need someone to run to who's going to understand. And it's been so good.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it's lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I've got good wins. I've got good failures. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and this you've probably heard the saying too, hire slow, fire fast. Someone told me that years ago, and it is so true. We just went through the process of hiring a new team member over the last 2 months. And it's a, generally speaking, I mean, this was one of the quicker ones, but I would say generally speaking, for us in this industry and the way I handle things, it's a 2 to 3 to 4 month process to hire someone. Lots of interviews, lots of references, lots of background checks, and all kinds of stuff to make sure that you're getting the right person.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
I would say on the flip side, I've learned the hard way, when you know someone's not a good fit, show them the door and show it to them fast, because otherwise it's toxic.
Yeah, and it brings down your other team members, your A players start considering leaving if you're a weak leader or manager. Then if you don't act fast and be decisive, I've certainly left team members in place far too long before as well. It's not easy to do. Out of interest, I mean, I agree, 2 to 3 months for recruitment, take it slow is really important. But what did you do to become better at recruiting? Was there any material you swatted up on, any courses you did, books you read that helped with that?
Yeah, I did listen to a lot of podcasts on that. There's a lot of good information out there. I did hire a small business HR professional, and she was incredibly helpful in just a lot of the practical side of stuff, of like helping you formulate job descriptions and having good questions to ask on interviews and things like that. So that also was incredibly helpful. Again, it's one of those things in business, you got to pay for their services, obviously. So there's a little bit of an investment, but if it helps and enables you to hire a better person who's going to be around 5 years as opposed to 6 months, so worth it. Yeah.
What are some of the things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, I really like that question too, because I think culture is so critical these days. Like people, at least in the States right now, people are job hunting often and it's rough out there. So one thing we found to do, and we only started implementing this about 2 years ago, which has made a dramatic improvement on our team culture. Every Wednesday afternoon, we stop work for at least an hour and we play games together. It has been so fun. Everyone loves it. It's like the highlight of the week. And whoever wins the game that day, they get a gift card, $10 gift card to wherever the gift cards are. But that has been so fun. It's just to break middle of the week to just be like, hey, let's just sit down and play games. I've literally cried laughing sometimes at some of the stuff that we play and the jokes that happen. So it's super good.
That's great. Yeah.
I would also, two other quick things, just the thing of encouraging employees. I really try and focus on that. Like when someone on the team does a good job, like we have a team chat that goes on, I'll give a shout out to that person and be like, hey, look at what this person just did. And then just being a kind person. I think that helps. Like one of the guys I was just interviewing this past 2 months, I asked him about why he was leaving one of the jobs. And he said his manager was just not a kind person. And if you're not a kind person, who wants to work with you? I mean, that's rough.
Yeah. Interestingly, stat I read a while ago, 70% of people quit their manager, not their job, because managers are either incompetent, asshole, toxic, or all of the above. It's huge. So yeah, that is phenomenal. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
When I saw that question, my first thing was like, that's impossible. So, I mean, I'm married. I've got 4 kids. They're all teenagers. So to some degree, the work-life balance just has to be there, because kids need to be driven places and you want to show up at your kids' sporting events. So it's a challenge. And anybody who's a business themselves knows that. One practical thing that has really worked well for me is, I'm not always good at this, so I'll throw that out there, but to come to work and leave work when my employees do. I mean, I'm generally there a few minutes before them and leave a few minutes after them. But for me to say, hey, I'm showing up when you guys are showing up and I'm leaving when you guys leave, and I'm not staying to work 2 hours later than everybody else, that really helps me set a good work-life balance.
Well, you've got to lead by example. If you're there working 60-hour weeks, then that puts pressure on the team to feel like they have to.
For sure.
So that's great that you point out the positives, that successes during a week that, you know, someone's done, because there's a phrase I coined called managing by exception. It's just human nature. We only talk about things when someone's made a mistake. So I'm really bad at it, as well as, I'm really good at managing by exception. I'm really bad at finding the positives and identifying them and communicating them. So I've put some things in place in my own management, like a weekly email to my team, and always point out at least one positive thing that someone's done that week, because it's just human nature not to talk about things unless, you know, it's an exception. So that's good that you do that.
Well, I'm not flawless at that either, but I've learned that it just makes people feel appreciated and it makes people want to work harder.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, you've mentioned you had a great mentor. Have you had coaches along the way as well, or other mentors?
Yeah. So I have what I call my business mentor. He's the guy who helped me write the business plan and who I meet with on a regular basis. He's my go-to when crap hits the fan. He's the person I call. I do have 2 other, what I would call like business coaches. One guy is more on the financial side of stuff. Like when we've got bigger decisions or stuff like that, I'll reach out to him and say, hey, I need some financial coaching to be able to help make some of these decisions. And then I have another guy who I would say is more like the relational HR coach. A year and a half ago, when we had some big staff turnover, I reached out to him and he did 6 months of coaching with me on conflict resolution. Dude, I can't tell you how much I learned from that time and personally grew a lot. And I think it's made me a much better leader, owner, manager, both at home and at the workplace. So yeah, very valuable there.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors?
No, I don't. Just mentors and coaches.
All right, Adam, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I say making decisions by myself. I mean, every business is going to be structured differently. For me, being owner, CEO, sitting up at the top, that's a challenge. And making the decision about 6 months ago to create a small leadership team with 2 other people on the team, that was incredibly awesome. I'm so glad I did that. Yeah, for sure.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
There's a lot of good ones out there. I'll list a few, but one favorite one that's not super well known is called The Millennial Whisperer. It's by Chris Tuff. I have a very young team. They're all millennials, if not younger. I forget what comes after millennials. So I think technically I'm a millennial too, but it was just a book on how to lead millennials and that generation. And it was so powerful and helped me again in a lot of practical ways. Other ones, E-Myth. I know that's a very popular one. Built to Sell. And then the book Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yeah, I just finished his Great by Choice book. Built to Last was the first one I listened to. Read that one, Built to Last?
Yep, that's on the bookshelf behind me too.
It's great. And from Good to Great, it's one of my favorites, probably is my favorite saying or quote, where he says, people aren't your greatest asset, the right people are. Get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, and the right people in the right seats.
Oh my gosh.
Such a pivotal.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, it is.
So true.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
Well, your podcast for sure. There's 2 other that I listen to quite frequently. One is The How of Business with Henry Lopez. Great, very similar to yours, like interviews people and very practical stuff. So much to learn there. And then The Agents of Change. That's another good podcast that I listen to. It's more geared towards marketing agencies, but there's a lot of valuable stuff that just the average small business owner can get out of that.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
I don't want to sound redundant, but get a business mentor. I mean, that's not necessarily a tool or a piece of software or something like that, but the practicality and the necessity of having someone who can walk alongside of stuff with you and who knows business and can be a sounding board to you is such a valuable asset. Yeah.
Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day 1 of starting out 5 years ago?
Don't give up. Yeah. I mean, I think we could all say that anybody who's owned a small business, you definitely have those days or weeks or months on end where you're just like, dude, I'm done.
Great. Well, thanks very much for your time today, Adam. I've really enjoyed our chat, and congratulations to you and the team growing from 2 to now 7 full-time equivalents and going up to around 10 person mark in the next few years. So well done over the last 5 years. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you, Troy. This has been an honor and a privilege to get to chat with you and to hopefully provide some valuable resources to your listeners.
We're getting some great iTunes reviews. For those listening, please hop over to your podcast app and leave us a review.